To the City of Millville work session for May 2nd, 2017. Approximate time is 4:06. Roll call, please.
Mayor Santiago?
Here.
Commissioner Ennis? Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Perka-Compare?
Here.
And Commissioner Sui?
Here.
Can we all stand, salute the flag, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, was advertised, posted, and made available to the public as required by law. The municipal clerk is directed to include a statement in the minutes of this meeting. Madam Clerk, are there any review changes to the agenda?
No, Mayor.
Public comments. Anyone that would like to speak on an agenda item, please step up to the mic, state your concerns, and limit your comments on agenda items in 5 minutes, please. Seeing no one, I close the public comments on agenda items only. Go right into old business.
Okay, so we have the Comcast contract as a discussion item.
Virginia, you want to bring us up to date?
Sure. I spoke with Nancy Wolf, who's with the state BPU. It's the Board of Public Utilities. And I clarified under no uncertain terms, Comcast is not exclusive. That Fios or any other company that would loan come in, they'd have to build out their infrastructure, are welcome to come in. We had a long conversation, and she's going to summarize the conversation in a letter and send it to us. I've been waiting about a week. I haven't gotten it yet. But anyhow, in the conversation, she did say that our renewal is an automatic 10-year renewal, so it's pretty automatic. But they will address any concerns you have. She said that the local office in the 2003 agreement was Vineland. That was the office that was address that was given. So she doesn't know whether we can list it. She also told me that, and I don't know whether residents know this, but if you don't get the satisfaction you need from Comcast, you can call the Board of Public Utilities and file a complaint. And once I receive the letter, I will be able to request the complaints that any residents have filed. So we could use that as discussion with Comcast moving forward. She also told us to, once again, look at our contract in detail and make sure that Comcast met every obligation, like the dedicated line and whatnot that we asked for, make sure there's nothing else. And all this would just have to be in writing. Basically, it could be as simple as, one letter, anything that we want it resolved, and we would write it to the company, and then there would be possible negotiation. But our renewal is pretty automatic, she said.
But you could write the letter. Was the letter written to ask for an extension for the automatic renewal? Weren't we allowed to do that?
Yeah, you can ask for an extension while you're working it out. We have to decide what we're doing, and a letter has to be out by the beginning of June.
For the extension, or?
Well, I
renewal.
think first we would have to say we had an issue, and if we would ask for an extension trying to resolve the issue.
And then what do we get? Do the city gets free internet and the school board gets free internet?
I believe
that
that's,
true?
I
Do
didn't
we
bring the
get-
contract up. I think that's what we have now,
We're
right?
sure paying a lot of money for
We
it.
do.
Well, I thought that part of the contract was we got free internet, but it might have been at a 10-year-old amount. So then the renegotiation would be to get free internet or something. I mean,
Okay,
like
well,
they're
I'll
really
look
going
at
to
that.
want to
I
leave.
didn't know
I
that was
can't
one of-
believe that they would want to leave Millville or have us entertain someone else coming into Millville.
Well, I think that I didn't speak with Comcast. I spoke with the Board of Public Utilities, and I don't think it's that entertain someone else coming in, but you could have both of them simultaneously is what they're telling me. And then it would have competition breeds,
And that's from the Board of Utilities.
Board of Utilities
What
says
does
that
our contract say?
our contract says they're not non-exclusive, so it doesn't mean that we can just have, and I saw that in the contract, so I questioned it. I said, what I'm reading says non-exclusive, and she said, you're right, it's non-exclusive. If another company wants to come in, they can come in.
They would have to put all the infrastructure in.
Sure.
The infrastructure.
Yeah.
We should just file the letter for
Well,
an extension.
can I suggest, we can do that, but can I suggest that we invite Comcast to a special meeting? Maybe with a couple of commissioners present.
I mean,
and
I'll
the
try.
administrator.
I'll try. It seems to be more on their terms than our terms.
But advise them that our contract's expiring and we'd like to meet with them. I think they'd want to meet with us.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I don't understand why they're in the driving seat.
I did read a newspaper article, I don't know if it's true or not, but it said that Comcast and Verizon are thinking about merging, so.
Oh, wow. Let's wait for that. Regina, I have one question. You said that the board told you that they had an office in Millville, or
No,
it
they
was
s-
addressed to Vineland?
They said in 2003, if the actual contract reads a local office. It doesn't say within the city limits. And she said in 2003, the contract, the address they had for the local office is a Vineland address. So they were already listing the Vineland office as a local.
But they were in Millville.
There was one
For a
in
while.
Millville, but they must have anticipated that was going to go away, and they had listed this one already. She said, I went back and looked at the contract, because I sent her an email with my questions first, and then we scheduled a telephone conversation. So she looked all the things up before we spoke,
Okay.
so.
But if we had a meeting with them, that would be one of the things we could address, which would be, we'd like you to have an office in Millville.
And we are paying Comcast internet
No, we're paying tons of money for internet.
through Comcast or the phones with
Well-
Verizon
well,
Wireless?
different accounts for internet.
Well,
all
remember
over the place.
too, and she was very clear about this, the Comcast agreement is for cable TV. It's not for internet.
So,
That's what it is. And she said it's a TV franchise that you have an agreement with. You don't have an agreement for internet.
So we basically still know very little, and we're still working on it.
how big's the contract? Can you give me a copy of the contract?
Mm-hmm.
You might as well give her a copy of the whole file.
No, I don't want the whole file. I would like the contract.
Well, the other details are in
Well,
different
yeah, that's the
letters.
problem, is the contract is actually an ordinance.
As
That's the
just read the
contract.
You're going to get into it anyway, Commissioner, so you might as well get the whole package.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, if it's just a contract for cable TV services, eventually that's gonna be obsolete, I mean, it really is. People are gonna get their TV like they do now with Netflix and stuff like
Yeah.
that
Well,
from
and-
the internet.
and if
Or
the-
get their shows from the internet, and they won't need a cable TV contract.
I think the starting point is like the solicitor said, we should sit down, talk to them,
Okay.
and there's no problems with talking to FiOS too. Let's sit down and see what
Okay.
each side is gonna offer and who's gonna offer the best deal, and then go from there.
Okay.
Guess that's where we're at with that one.
Okay, so, old business item 2 is amending various committees in the city. Discussion.
I guess what we were going to do, we did the Personnel Committee, but the CFO was not listed in that resolution. Can we just add the CFO to that resolution?
Yes.
Okay, and we can still hear it tonight, so it would just be?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was the one thing. And then Regina worked up the purchasing board, so I'm going to look at that and see, and then we'll pass it around to
Because
everybody
the
for next
purchasing
meeting.
board's part of the code, so it'll have to be done by ordinance.
And then the only other committee, when I looked through them, that I thought that we were lacking and that we may need was the environmental committee. So I didn't know if we wanted to take care of that, because there would be meetings about the airport, because I know sewer, there's some issues out there with that, so they were left out of the meetings. So they should be able to meet, so we can meet with Frank periodically. Because what's happening is he sends me an email, I funnel it out. I know we're dealing with Sal with a few things, and everybody takes care of it. It just takes a lot more time than if everybody was in the same room once in a while to get everybody on the same page. And there's a lot of things going on with the airport right now.
Water superintendent, sewer superintendent, engineering.
Right.
And the Environmental Commission also is a valuable commission that advises the planning board too. So,
Which we don't have one, so I guess we can look at to see if
Yeah.
it's necessary to do that. Because we did have the green team.
yeah.
I guess we still do on the books. They never meet. We had talked at one point about merging that with the Shade Tree Commission. So I don't know if that's something else that we should probably look into.
But
to
there are
simplify
towns
things.
that have both of them. They have the an environmental commission and a green team.
Yeah, I guess the green team is the staff was spread thin to take care of it, so that was one problem. And then we also had problems with getting people to be on that committee. They were meeting during the afternoon, which is a bad time. So, the Shade Tree had a full membership, so it just seemed like an easier solution. And what they do kind of meets and it really fits in better with your department, because they were doing things, there's different points for making a building green and different, so you would get points for what you're doing with the
Well, we
RRCA
have to save
building.
The people on the Shade Tree Commission want to
want
do that.
that, yeah, or else we'll have to start that up because they would get points, and then the more points you have, you get a different bronze, silver, gold level, and then you're entitled to more grants.
So the Director of Parks and Public Property is going to be the...
I don't know if he wants it, or it was in public affairs before, so I don't know who wants to.
If you'd like it, Bill, please take it.
Yeah, I need a little bit more.
There you go.
This is
That
why we
sounds
were
like a
going to,
commitment.
this is why it was needed to be merged.
Bill, that's not.
Well, you know,
Let's see if they want to merge it first. If they want to merge it, then,
And what the drawback, I don't know what the pros and cons are.
the shade tree commission only went to one or two, they're relatively quick meetings.
Okay.
You'll contact
I'll have
Sam.
Sam contact
okay.
pull the shade tree commission members to see if they're interested.
Okay.
And I think was all the committees, right?
Right.
That we need to seem to do something about. Because the other ones are just expired, so we don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Next item, WS.
Yep,
Three.
item 3 is homeowners' responsibility for maintaining and replacement of their sanitary service lateral. A discussion on this?
Yeah, if I may, I have some draft ordinances that I want to just hand out for discussion purposes.
And also at the admin meeting today, the sewer and water department were there, and they didn't know about this ordinance. It hadn't been discussed with them, and they would like to be in on the discussions. So we didn't know if they could have a meeting with you before we did something about this ordinance.
I think that's why we're having a discussion today,
They're not here, though.
just because it's not ready.
Sewer department's here.
Okay, that's fine.
Can you give a copy of that to Sal? Sal, you want a copy of this? Thank you.
And I think that this is something that the engineer also may want to comment on, because there are a number of pros and cons to doing this, but what it would do, to the benefit of the audience, is right now, our ordinance makes it the homeowner's responsibility to maintain the entire sewer and water lateral from their premises to the sewer or water main. Many other towns don't do it that way. What they do is they make it the municipality's responsibility to maintain that portion of the lateral from the curb stop or the clean out to the main. And then the homeowner would only be responsible for the other portion. There are a lot of reasons for that. Obviously, pipes can be damaged by heavy trucks and vehicles on the roadway, which may not really be the fault of the homeowner. Some of the infrastructure is old. There are ceramic, clay type pipes which can be broken when there's a heavy truck that goes over. And Wayne can address it better than I can, but there are various other pros and cons. Obviously, the city would be responsible financially for part of the infrastructure that it's not responsible for.
So
that's
so the homeowner would be responsible from the main to the house,
The curb to the
the
house.
curb to the house.
the curb to the house is what the new one would do.
From the
Okay.
right-of-way line to the house. That's what a lot of cities and municipalities do. Right now, we have an uneven playing field. We have some residents that are, a typical sewer line from the house, maybe 3 to 4 feet deep. Our mains in the street could be anywhere from 6 to 12 foot deep. We're asking them to make a connection in a 12-foot deep excavation in some cases, and most homeowners, can't afford that. Most regular plumbers can't even do that kind of work. You have to bring in a specially heavy utility contractor with trench shields and, crews that are used to doing that kind of work and require dewatering. So we're asking homeowners to pay for this kind of thing. The cost could be $15,000 to $20,000 for that kind of repair. Puts the contractors in a position when they're pricing that out that they're trying to do the repair the quickest and easiest way, which most times or sometimes may not be the way it should be done, because they know that the homeowners can't afford to pay for it. For instance, they might just repair the 90 on a drop going down to the main instead of going right down to the main where it could be broken also. I've seen that happen in many instances. So there's a lot of different things to consider. I'm a firm believer the city should own and be responsible for everything in the right of way that's there's utility box, just so we can maintain it, take care of it.
I think that's fair.
I think that's fair, but unfortunately, when you
It's
do
gonna be
things that are
costly.
fair, sometimes
Sure.
it comes back to
Well,
cost you.
it's-
gonna cost you.
But
And-
that's the
I
problem.
do
Well,
think it's the right thing to do. I mean, we're gonna have to figure
Right.
out a way to,
right.
And did anybody do a cost analysis just to see? Like, did they talk to the sewer department? Well, they had an idea at the
yeah.
admin meeting today, but
Okay.
no one had talked to them. So, they had some preliminary ideas of what the costs were gonna be.
We haven't looked at that yet.
And staffing. So they were concerned about the staff that they had on hand, if they would be able to handle this.
well, it's gonna, most of it will be contracted out anyway.
A lot of it will probably be contracted out in the beginning and
So
maybe.
double.
They were concerned about the initial part, videoing, and it would take longer to video.
Well, pretty much we video it anyway to find out where the break is.
I'm secondhand now.
Yeah, that was the concern was increase in number of calls, because now homeowners will realize they don't have to pay, so they'll call easier. So that would increase their service calls, and then the cost of the work and the staff to do the work.
Well, if we
Right,
contract
that was
most of the
those
work
three.
out, that won't be a problem. Because if it's deep, the deep stuff, we're gonna have to contract out anyway.
Problem is, we have to make sure, and this is Marcy's field, in the budget, that we stay self-liquidating, and if we don't know the cost, we're going into it blind.
Right, we need a cost estimate first, absolutely.
Well, I had one
So we can
comment
plan
that I
for
thought was important, that in other towns and municipalities, they kind of came up with a standard practice where we have an older home where they may have a lateral service that's 50, 70 years old. A lot of times they don't have a clean out. So there's no way to really determine where the problem is at in the service unless you were to go into the homeowner's home and come out that way and check. I mean, I think it would be fair and appropriate for the city to request that, any homeowner that doesn't have a clean out at the curb line, the first step in, going about checking the system out would be to have them have a plumber put in a clean out. They put that clean out in, then we could come in and do a lateral inspection with our cameras.
Because there was concern about
Determine where
backups.
the break is at, or the obstruction. Is it between the curb and the main, or is it between, the curb and the house? If it's from the curb and the house, then the homeowner's responsible for that section.
And what's that cost the homeowner?
I have no idea.
That clean out you're talking
Clean out
about.
maybe $1,000 at the most. Clean out.
Because if we check the lateral now, it's possible we could cause a backup into the home, correct?
They were talking about that at the meeting
Yeah.
today. They
If we
mentioned
don't have
that.
a clean out, there's no way we can really clean out.
Well, they were saying that if they put their equipment in and didn't realize there wasn't a clean out, it could force the sewer back into the house.
I mean, there's all different kinds of situations where they have low-grade fixtures or just standard fixtures. If they have low-grade fixtures, and you could back up a system that way if they don't have a backflow valve. We get calls about those kind of things all the time.
And the other problem is that if you have a break in a lateral and it's under the roadway,
Which is what we're experiencing now
The-
on 7th Street on a brand-new roadway.
you can't wait until a homeowner gets around to fixing it, even though you have an ordinance that says it's their responsibility. I mean, you've got a sinkhole in a roadway,
Got to take care of it.
you've got to take care of it.
Yeah, we opened that road back up to traffic on Friday, and the first truck that went over the hole, it sank 2 feet. So we had to close that section of the road down, and now we're forced to make an emergency repair because we can't have our road closed because of a failure in the lateral. It's a hazard, so we have to fix it.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Is that discussion? Next one. Discussion of commissioners. Commissioner Davis.
Not at this time.
Commissioner Sui.
Yeah, I have to bring something up, and it has to do with, again, the sewer department, water department, the problem on 7th Street. As you guys know, and I've mentioned this before, I'm the backup for Commissioner Ennis. I've been informed by the attorney that I can only make decisions in case of emergency. There are many issues that are now stacking up due to Mr. Ennis's absence. He's not only absent from this meeting, he's absent from his department. Decisions aren't getting made. Perhaps we had a decision, we're talking about these sewer laterals. You know, Commissioner Ennis brought that up before, and yet, kind of his department, where's he at? And as I said, it's interfering with daily stuff. I'm getting phone calls all the time. I'm told I can't make decisions, personnel matters pending, all kind of stuff pending. Vendors not getting paid on time because bills aren't getting paid on time. I'm certainly not gonna sign bills if I don't know what the money has been expended for. So, something needs to be done.
I will attempt to contact him and get an answer from him right after this meeting. How's that?
All right with me.
And I'll have somebody else sit there and witness it.
Put on speakerphone.
Send him a text.
Anything else, Commissioner Sui?
That would be all.
Commissioner Perry?
It came to my attention, so I'm not sure how to fix it in the future. I guess Mr. Russell will be okay, but with the previous attorney, they hired attorney to do their conflict work that the commission never approved. So now that we have a bill from them, and that lawyer was consulting with the previous city attorney about it, so I'm not sure what we do about that bill, because he's not returning the contract, so they can't pay him downstairs unless he returns the contract. So I'm assuming moving forward, I just don't want it to happen again. I know if there's a conflict, you usually let us know, and then we talk about it and we hire someone.
I would never hire somebody without, to replace me without getting some resolution that would approve that from the Board
Right.
of Commissioners.
So I mean, do we need to have a policy in place, or that should be a known policy and it was just not looked at before?
I think it would be something that people would know about. I can't imagine that, because there's no authority. You
Well,
can't
in the
just-
back, and this was years ago when lawyers were actually employees, as a prosecutor, you were the assistant attorney and took conflict cases, am I correct?
Yeah.
I
So-
mean, would we be better to have a conflict attorney on an RFP for, at least for the solicitor? I get that every single
I mean,
lawyer would be
yeah,
too
'cause I
much to.
guess when they do the tax, it did come under the city solicitor conflict then, right? Correct, the tax, because it was a tax attorney conflict.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the right way to do it. You know, we're still pondering this bill. I guess we can't pay it
Well,
until we
how
get
do
the contract signed, right?
Well, one of the things you could do, it used to be,
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, I mean, if you decided to call somebody else to do something, then we're certainly not just stuck with a
We
bill.
can do
the
that.
city,
Right.
We didn't
Yeah.
hire him, basically.
the city would not be responsible for paying
So
that.
then do we
Correct.
pay him, or what do we do?
Well, I think that he's obviously done some work, but he's going to have to satisfy us that, that all of the P's and Q's.
Vendor on our system.
Yeah,
So even if I wanted to just do a PO for an
Yeah.
explanation, work, I can't even do that because he doesn't have a vendor number.
yeah.
And he's not returning the information you requested. So she's sent information out and isn't returning the information. I guess I just have a problem also paying him for consulting a previous attorney about a case that the city's doing presently. I don't even understand that frame of reference. Because if they were in conflict, they shouldn't have any information about that case anyhow.
Well, my recommendation would be, Marcy, if you would just send him a note advising him that you can't pay him unless he
That'd be the easiest thing to do.
You
signs
did
the...
that, but you did that once, correct? Right. She already did it.
Right.
We sent him a vendor package so that he
could-
could,
We have a
How
number.
how could another attorney hire somebody for a conflict, like you just said?
I don't know. I don't know.
They would have no information if they had a conflict, other than it's a conflict.
Yeah. I don't know. I wasn't here when that happened, so I don't know what went on.
and it was for work in 2014. Just like now, it's 2017.
Yeah, and just for the record, the commissioner that was in charge of that department is not sitting up here now. So we did not have anything to do with it.
Well, it was a case that was pending in tax court for 3 years. It probably was the oldest case that they had, and it recently was resolved. That's why there's 3 years' worth of services. Now,
But why would you be billing on a yearly
I don't know.
basis?
I can't answer that.
3 years to get
Yeah.
paid for work that
That's the same reason why the person's not calling you back. Who
Yeah.
knows? You don't know. Not calling you back, didn't
Yeah.
follow up every year.
3 years
so
to bill.
now we're in this
Yeah.
position.
I remember years and years ago, I think when Bill Forrester was a solicitor and Richard McCarthy was the prosecutor, I think Richard also was the assistant solicitor, and he would handle a conflict matter that Bill had. and that was under the prosecutor's contract. He was the prosecutor and the assistant city attorney. Now, I know that we had previously an assistant city attorney who was not the prosecutor, and I think Rich Daniels held that position most recently. But I don't know that we have anything in there
I mean,
about conflict.
my suggestion is put an assistant for conflict matters in the RFP at an hourly rate, and just realize that if something comes up, that's what we'll have.
Does that seem, from a lawyer's standpoint, does that
Yeah.
seem, okay?
It's probably the quickest.
There hasn't been very much since I've been here
No,
for some
no,
reason,
but-
so.
No, and that's what, when I asked Brian Rosenberg how often tax appeals had a conflict now, he said that's the only one that he knows about, so that's 1 in 3
Yeah.
years. Okay.
Oh, he said since 2006.
Okay,
Since he was hired, he's never had a conflict one, so,
okay.
you know.
So, my other question too had regard, I was at a, meeting with the planning board, and this has to do with engineering. When they do the escrow billing for the accounts that go before the planning board, if they could send them in, is it possible for us to get the bills before they go before the planning board? Because if the planning board finds against them, there's one big outstanding bill right now, the odds that they'll ever get paid are gonna be slim to none, because they're already upset that it got turned down. So I guess there's, that escrow billing system has to be looked at, so the city can get their money.
Typically, before we'd have like a tech review meeting, and then, bring out the escrow accounts and review that. So I should get back to that, get the new players on board, and then,
Yeah, because I guess this one was submitted after the fact, so it's an issue right now. Okay. Go ahead, do you want to go back? No, keep going. No, and I just didn't know, is there any progress with the SPCA, because that's an outstanding bill?
Marcy asked me that. I have
Um,
a meeting set up for Monday, 9 o'clock here.
And that was it?
Can we have the engineering report, please?
Going first, you? All right.
All right, just give you an update on our road projects. 3rd Street, Vine Street, actually 3rd Street, they're planning on milling and paving next week. So once that's done, they'll just have to do striping, so 3rd is pretty close to being finished. Vine Street is underway. You've probably seen some of the traffic control out there in front of the college. Actually, more of the work's being done between 2nd and 3rd Street. So they're moving. They did some curb work, some sidewalk work. And High Street Phase 1, the contractor's indicated he's going to wait till after Memorial Day to start work, because I did contact traffic safety and actually all the contractors of the current road projects, just to let them know the activities going on during the Memorial Day weekend, the parades, Olympic Day parade, and the Memorial Day, well, that Monday, that parade, and they do a ceremony on the bridge on Route 49 here. So I'll let them know, so there's no conflicts, that weekend. So that's kind of the active road projects. High Street Phase 2, we're going to send the 90% plans up to DOT for their review. So that'll, they'll review that, and we'll get that out shortly. And then, that's the other road project. And those are the main projects. The Riverfront Renaissance Center roof building, we've passed those specs along to Dave Battistini to take a look at. So he'll get us some comments back on that, so we can move forward with that. And those are kind of the main updates. If you have any more questions on any other projects, or anything you might be thinking of. Wayne has some updates on the wastewater treatment plant. On that end.
The Field of Dreams passed their sound test?
The data hasn't been downloaded yet, so I know the zoning officer wanted to talk with, the sound engineer that actually did the certification, the calculation for, where they certified to the 10 decibels. So I haven't seen those yet, and I think it was a matter of just printing out the data to see how the the peaks and what the average was. I mean, in some cases, it didn't look like it was up to the 10 decibels. I don't want to say officially, but it's been done.
Did they have a good turnout that day? Because it was was not a good week.
Yes, and actually, to be honest, I guess more the sound was. I mean, there was a race running across the street as well, the car
Oh.
race. So there was sound from that as well. So that'll have to be looked into.
Good luck with that.
Wait, Brian, can you repeat that again for me, please, a little louder?
Yeah, with the Field of Dreams, when the sound test was done, there was races on both tracks. There was races on the
Oh.
cycle track, and there was one also across the street
Got it.
there. Yeah.
So let me get this right. There was a requirement put in that the Field of Dreams had to attenuate the sound between the game reserve, but the racetrack, no such requirement.
You got it.
Well, I think when the original.
Can you keep this one simple for me, yes or no?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, as simple as I
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the motorsports came in, I mean that was one project. It was everything was all inclusive. So, probably that settlement agreement that the notorious one that references the 10 decibels and the buffers. That was all part of
Just Field of Dreams.
the whole complex. I mean, it did say for the ATV track, they called it at the time, but the cycle track, that there'd be a buffer wall there or sound wall there, and then for the tri-oval, when you do that, there's going to be a sound wall, and if that ever happens. And,
Well, that's interesting.
So it was in the judgment, but it was specific to that one particular sound wall.
Correct, just if it only applies to Field of Dreams.
Yeah, there were, in Brian's defense, I'm going to defend
I'm not
you.
saying it's his
No,
fault.
in Brian's defense, there were some things in the Citizen United Agreement that pertained to the racetrack also, but the sound wall just pertained to the cycle track.
Right, it kind of broke it out. There was like buffer requirements on
Yeah,
Buckshooter.
No, I'm not
But
blaming
I know what
anybody.
you're
I just
saying.
find it very interesting, but.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we can work on a couple things.
Wayne's interpretation was that there may be conflicts because the noise coming from the racetrack were overpowering some of the noise from the Field of Dreams.
so the racetrack
So
is strong.
I think he was going to consult with you, Brock, just to get an interpretation from the Superior Court decision, because he wasn't sure how to proceed.
Well, I think it's easy because you have a judgment that was done by consent, and at that time the Field of Dreams track was part of the whole motorsports park complex, and it's very specific that you would have to have a certain measurement at a particular place. It doesn't say only when the racetrack isn't in operation. So, I would read that as
But if
clear.
the racetrack's making more noise than the Field of Dreams, it doesn't matter if the Field of Dreams is running or not.
No, but he's saying the sound wall's supposed to take care of the noise, so the
From the
racetrack might
racetrack,
have
too.
to also do it.
Yeah, I don't think it would apply if the Field of Dreams wasn't having a race. I think it was meant to deal with noise from the Field of Dreams, but I don't think there's any provision in there that says, oh, well, if there's also a race across the street, that this doesn't apply. I don't think you could read that into it.
So
Well,
only
how
when-
do you,
Only when they
I
have
think-
races on the same day.
in other words,
Yeah.
Field of Dreams could be shut down, the racetrack could be running, it could be over the limit, and that's okay.
Well, if at that particular point it doesn't meet the criteria that the judge put in that consent decree.
Say it's, I don't know, 1,000 decibels on the other side of the wall when Field of Dreams is shut down and the racetrack is running.
So
How do you hold Field of Dreams responsible for that? And so therefore, how do you hold them responsible when they're both running and it exceeds the limit?
depends how it's written.
Well, somebody should have thought about that when they entered that
You
judgment.
mean that wise and
That's a
old
good
judge
answer,
sitting up there didn't think about
That's
that?
a great answer. Well, listen, we're not going to solve this right now. It's something for the future that we're going to have to look into. Agree?
Senile men in robes.
Anything else? All right,
That's all I have.
Thank you.
thank you.
Commissioners, thanks for letting me give you the update on the wastewater plant. Here's just some photos, if you want to pass them around, to show some of the construction.
At least you didn't bring us any sludge in today.
Sludge today.
I was gonna say that.
The results are in on the cost for removing the 1908 tank that was in the way of construction. It's a PCO 23. It's $42,000. So here's all the backup if you care to see that. That was the structure that was in the way of the UV distribution box.
So how big is this tank?
The interior dimensions are 5 by 7 by about 14 feet down from the top of the existing tank. It's a small box we're putting in, but at a great cost because we hit the old chlorine contact chamber and also the 1908 foundation of the plant. We had a saw cut through 5 feet of solid concrete. It took 2 weeks of intermittently T&M work for saw cutting crews and demolition crews to remove the structure. It's out of the way now, so we can proceed with the work. They're now building the walls of the structure. Now they poured the slab last week. They're putting them recently, so they're moving forward. So unfortunately, we did encounter the historical old plant that was in the way. The PCO tracking sheet, I left it on your desk. You can see PCO 23 is at the end. It's $41,000 and change. There's a newer PCO also that was added. This one was a credit to the contract, a small credit, $19,000 for incorporating a duct bank into another one, and also for relocating some control panels and distribution panels into the existing UV building that we have on site, taking them from on top of the UV tank. So that's a credit to the contract. One of the more important things we did since the past commission meeting is we had the Fournier rotary press pilot study. It started on April 17th. It ended on April 20th. The results were varying through the tests initially, but the average was about 27% cake solids for the Fournier system. Our own belt filter press at that time was producing about 22% cake solids. Several analysis and spreadsheets were done by the manufacturer and the distributor showing some savings. I went through and did some simplified calculations based on the reduction in cake solids. If the rotary press cake solids for any reason that could possibly happen drop below 24.1, it puts us into the next category of pricing at Atlantic County Utility, where we incinerate our sludge. That brings the cost savings down to $120,000 a year. As long as it stays up above 24.1 in the 25% range, that savings was $180,000 a year. And the only issue is that we're spending $1.73 million to save those monies. That's the issue that we're asking the commission for help in the decision. I also think it's important to note that last year in July we experienced fecal coliform problems where we're now getting fined from the DEP for exceeding our monthly and weekly averages. We just received the violation notice last week on Friday. We're implementing whatever additional controls we can to make sure we're making compliance with not only document collection but also with the fecals. The DEP has repeatedly asked and persuaded us to install disc fillers at the end of the plant to help ensure that we never blow compliance or miss a compliance number. Our plant has historically been having issues meeting compliance. I don't know of a better way to label it, but we're labeled as a plant experiencing problems. We're now placed on a yearly EPA inspection. They're coming back every year to go over our records and our plant operations. Having said all that, I think it's important that we consider the disc fillers to help protect our effluent, protect one of Millville's greatest resources, the Morris River, and make sure we have a polished effluent going into the river. I met with Commissioner Sui earlier before the meeting, and we went through the numbers. So it's a big decision we have to make.
So I'm confused still. So the sludge part, go back to that. You're saying we're going to save $180,000 a year, but what, to have that equipment upgraded? It's what's the 1.2 million?
For 1.7.
1.7. What's
For the new sludge
It's
press.
1.55 million, and when you add in the cost of upgrading existing belt filter presses, it comes up to $1.73 million that we have spent or was spent to put in the rotary presses.
It was spent, so that's all done.
Will be,
180
no.
was already spent,
180,000,
180,000.
but to put the rotary presses in,
It's another 1.5 million.
Is that part of the contract now, or is that additional to?
it is the change order we talked about before.
Oh,
Now,
To put it in or to take it out?
the contractor and the engineer, they've worked up some preliminary numbers where they could offer us a credit of over $1 million to not put in the rotary presses and to put in the disc filters that would protect the river and clean up our effluent to ensure that we don't, miss our compliance.
And the DEP wants the filters.
The DEP's been pushing hard for this.
So you want to switch the two things, is what you're
I
saying?
think that's something we need to consider, and I think it would be a good move for the city. I know at the plant, I feel for the crew and the staff, they're struggling working the belt filter presses. But I think it's important that we, protect our environment, protect the river, and put Millville in a position where we can get off our yearly EPA inspection list. Become a plant that the city's proud of, the employees are proud of.
It will take approximately
so-
14 years to realize any savings.
No, I understand. So the add 3 cloth filters are $1 million to do those filters in front of the river, to protect the river?
Roughly $1 million to put the filters in, yes.
And it's $1 million to get, and we save $1 million by getting rid of the presses.
The one good part, not that any of this is good, they're difficult decisions. The one good thing is that this could be done with no real cost in the contract dollars, because we'd be deleting one part of the contract and adding it in at another point. So it wouldn't, cause rates to go up or cause us to go for a change order. Now, there is some unforeseen conditions in the back where the disc filters would go, just to give you, information. Is the old chlorine contact tank, when that was demolished, it was never removed completely. It was only demolished down to 18 inches below grade. So that could interfere with the placement of slabs to put the disc filters on. But it wouldn't be anything like we went through just now for that 14-foot deep excavation.
And if you put the cloth filters in, then the DEP, as soon as they see them, will stop coming down every year?
Well, I don't think they'll stop coming down all the time, but it's gonna put us in a better position with the EPA and DEP.
And how
We've
much,
already said that.
and how much was the fine?
We don't know what the fine is yet. We just got the violation notice Friday. That's from something that happened back in July. The guys are working hard at the plant, they're doing everything they can to meet limits and keep the plant working right. There's no guarantee that something may come in this July that causes the plant to, fall below standards.
But now all the numbers are good and everything's going well,
Right
right?
now, they're good. Our last vehicle was 10. All the solids and the BOD numbers were, they said they were single digits, I believe. So the plant's running well. We're just asking for direction on this big decision.
Well, after going through the numbers with you, I think, and based on your, the DEP wanting it, I think we should go with the disc filters.
I mean,
What about for NJEIT funding? Everything has to go through them. Did they approve this?
the NJEIT engineer and the inspector, Dave Helfrich and Bill Mahaka, they're in favor of the change.
And the funding's in place, that's all I hear.
And the only problem is that we don't have a.
Marcy, you tell him.
This breakdown, when I hear $1 million, you're changing, and
Sure.
this is the first I hear of it.
What's that last one?
while we're on that subject,
Do you want one of these? Want that?
now, well, what my concern here about the change orders are, and I realize that it's an ongoing process, but it reads in our purchasing policy that minor field modifications less than 5% of the original contract that do not affect the overall scope of the work may be authorized by the engineer after getting a cert of funds. But then it says at the next commission meeting, a resolution for this change order should be prepared for the governing body's approval. And this is going on month to month, and we're not doing any change order
Well, we
by
haven't.
resolution.
You didn't approve any of these yet,
No.
except the
The
$42,000.
42,000,
That's
which
the
is
only
less than
one.
5%.
You didn't, this is just your worksheet, right?
That's
Did
our
you,
worksheet,
did you do any of these besides the 42,000 that you had to do?
We issued a field directive to move forward with critical schedule items.
Yeah, there's dates on some
They
of
were up
these.
to, I think, $70,000.
Oh, so
They
this, so
were well
it's
below
7.
the 5% limit, which was 300 and some thousand.
So you're
We
saying you
just
need
need
a
to be doing
resolution for the
resolutions
million,
at the
so-
meetings, like, that we're staying on
So
top
if
of it.
we do that, if you prepare that and put it on this meeting,
Well, I don't know that you can get it prepared, because they have to, that's a little more complicated for the engineers.
And I think certainly if we're going to do even though there's not going to be much of a net effect, if you're going to change out the rotary press for
What is it, $7
a
million?
different type of equipment, and that's a big ticket item of over $1 million, that should certainly be in the form of a resolution. I would agree with the administrator.
One thing that's important is that, you know, if we're in agreement to do that change, if we could give the field directive to allow the contractor to keep moving forward, then it wouldn't impact the schedule and wouldn't have any, you know, potential charges for a delay to the contract.
Some of these are all on the same date, so when you plus and minus them, then it goes down. Do you do a plus and?
You do a
Yeah.
plus and minus, it looks like the net effect's 51,000.
So then
But
you're-
it's okay if it's less than 5%, it's okay, but at the next meeting, we're supposed to be continually doing resolutions with change
Okay,
orders.
so we should have done something for the February
You
20th
need that
then.
approval now, so that it doesn't interfere with work.
We need a direction so we can keep moving forward.
That means
So-
an approval.
And then we could, you know, have a change order forthcoming for a large item like that. I could give them a change directive and then the change order could be
But
forthcoming.
I think what Regina is saying, she would like a resolution for what you've already done, correct?
Well, I mean, we can't, the next meeting,
Yeah,
it's
the
pretty
next
detailed what
meeting,
they
there
have to
should
do,
be-
I understand that, but I just
Yeah,
want,
so the things
we
that
have
you
to
did in
keep doing that,
February,
yeah.
there should be a resolution,
Right.
right?
I would suggest two resolutions, one to cover what was already done in February, and then one for this new aspect. But I think the engineer's looking for some verbal direction from the commission as to the swap out of the rotary press. for-
Right, so I can go back and
Other
give,
equipment.
you know, a directive to the contractor, this is the direction we're going. They could start revising their schedules. AECOM would have to come up with a design. There'd be some cost in that.
There's a cost.
And, how much longer do you need them?
AECOM?
Yeah,
Well, right now, we're in order to keep their budget down and not exceed their budget, we're doing all the change orders in-house ourselves. They did them on the last job, they charge extra for that.
right.
So we're doing that all internally, the change orders. So that's a savings there. We need them through the shop drawing process, and if there's any design problems that arise with, you know, testing of the Trojan UV or anything like that, we need them through that startup.
Do we have an estimate on their cost?
Regina?
I'm sorry,
Do we have an estimate from AECOM on the cost of this change?
Back in March, they already submitted a change order request for $52,000. That's when I cut their time down to bare minimum. The $52,000 was for, they had only budgeted for a certain amount of change orders. They had only budgeted for a certain amount of RFIs, requests for information during the bidding. They only, you know, budgeted for a certain amount of shop drawing review.
Did we approve the change order, or like what happened?
That one I
We didn't approve the change order yet. I
Okay.
told them I wanted to meet, I told them their cost was excessive, and I wanted to meet with them and go through every item line by line before I would bring it to the commission. So I want to make sure when I present it to the commission that it's.
Well, my only concern is that they're not gonna present us with the bill, and then we'll have another battle.
I don't want to have a battle with anybody, I just.
No,
wanna
no,
make
I
sure-
mean with AECOM, the problem
Oh,
is they
yeah.
have a contract, and if they're working, assuming they're gonna be paid, even though the change order wasn't approved, then we're gonna have another problem.
We already cut them out of the change order, so we wouldn't be expending their contract time on that.
So you still need the direction of what you want us to do.
Right, we still need direction. And
Well,
unfortunately, it's not black and white, it's, you know, a lot of different areas to consider.
I don't know what you guys think, I
And
voiced my opinion,
DEP compliance.
so Phil.
Yeah, I know it's gotta be difficult to keep the plant moving and doing this construction at the same time, but we have to comply with the DEP. Can't afford to, pay the fines, so
Right.
whatever works.
I guess that means all that stuff we just
Get
said.
it done.
Done, right, we're good?
Sounds good to me.
Get it done.
But you have to filter it to be in compliance, right, and get them off our back, so.
Well, the thing is, you know, even though as hard as the guys work operating a plant, there's no guarantee that we're gonna consistently, you know, meet compliance. I mean, this is the third UV system we had at the plant. There was the Whitaco system, the Trojan pilot, now we're putting in another Trojan system. Hopefully this one will be, you know, it's 1.5 times what we had before. Should be able to handle it, just in one bank. we have a blowout in the plant, the biology dies off, turbidity drops, we got problems. I'm just trying to do the right thing for the city and the residents and the river.
Thank you.
Well, you're doing a good job, Wayne.
I'm trying, Commissioner.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Anything else? That's it?
Yeah,
We've had enough, huh?
and I'm sorry, Regina was just gonna give us an administrative report.
Yeah, another thing too, the resolution they want for the advertise for the RCIA roof.
I'm sorry.
To advertise for the RCIA roof.
Okay.
Okay. Under Commissioner Parecka, we decided to institute an administrator's report, and it's to keep things positive. We so often rely on the negative, it gets negative. So what I'm trying to do is reach out to different departments, and when I know that, the department has accomplished something, that they deserve accolades for, or an individual employee. So tonight I'd just like to mention that Chief Lippincott, our fire chief, he received a special recognition award for his efforts for coaching, for safety, and he received it from our joint insurance fund. Because he won the award, the city will be allowed to hold a luncheon at the firehouse, and as long as it's all right with the commissioners, we're allowed to invite all the city. They give us up to $1,000 and join the lunch, so kudos
Pizza.
to...
Keep it low.
So then he'll be picking a date, and if there's leftovers, then we'll leave them there for the firemen that aren't there that day and enjoy. The other person we're going to recognize is Chief Farabella at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon this month. He was honored as an outstanding citizen. Commissioner Davis and Mayor Santiago attended, along with fellow officers and employees, and they had a nice luncheon, and congrats to Chief Farabella. So. And on another note, we did get a grant for improving a lot of the things at different city buildings, and now it's time to start to implement the grant, and we need to advertise for the bid for the roofing for the RCIA building. The bid specs were just completed. I haven't seen them yet, but in order to keep things moving forward, I'd like to ask permission to put it on the agenda for the right to advertise tonight, the public notice. So if the commissioners agree, I'll get the public notice prepared and add it to the agenda so that I can review the specs tomorrow and advertise the bid at the end of the week.
Yeah, no
Okay.
problem with it.
All right, thank you.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Let me see. Now he's got, 5 hours to get that done.
Any other committee reports? No? Okay, I'll hold my report for the next meeting. Public comment portion. We've reached the public comment portion of our meeting. Anyone who would like to address the commission, please go to the podium. State your name and your address, and address your concerns. Please limit your comments to approximately 5 minutes. Right over here? Yes.
Good evening. Adrian Pacenti, Vineland, New Jersey. The life of a circus animal is grinding hell, despite what their owners say. Zerbini Circus will make their annual caravan to the New Jersey Motorsports Park on May 14 and 15. Kindly enact an ordinance to ban traveling wild animal exhibitions in Millville. This progressive action is the only way to prevent wild animal shows from Millville's private and city-owned property. Please place the first reading of a ban on the exhibition of wild and exotic animals on the May 16 agenda for commission meeting. If any assistance is needed or further discussion, do not hesitate to contact me or Animal Defenders International. They are ready, willing, able at a moment's notice to assist in enacting an ordinance banning wild animal traveling shows in the city of Millville. May I answer any questions?
Commissioners? I do not have one for you, Adrian, but thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I thought you were getting up to speak, Chief. No. Sorry. God, threw me off there a little bit. Seeing no one else, I close the public portion part of this meeting. And now we were going into
Give a resolution authorizing a closed session immediately following the May 2nd, 2017, 4 o'clock work session regarding the following matters. We have the Sewer Department personnel matters, Oakview Apartments potential litigation, Cumberland County Improvement Authority contract, attorney-client privilege, Chief of Police contract under contract negotiations, and Water Department personnel matters. Do I have a motion to
have
go
a
into?
motion.
Second.
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 All right, we'll move into closed sessions. Stand by, folks. Thank you.